This is the Louie T Network.
Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to lockdown coverage, week number 13 in the National Football League. Carolina Panthers taking on the New Orleans Saints. NFC South family business. If these two teams said they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, that's family business. Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy. You knew this was going to be some good, old-fashioned NFC South family business. And this was big. Big for a number of reasons. One, both of these teams came in tied atop the division at 8-3. Winner would take sole possession of first place. That's number one. Number two, Panthers have already lost to the Saints this season once at home. Another loss would give the Saints the season sweep, meaning if these two teams finish tied at whatever record at the end of the season, and they were the two best marks in the division, the division would go to the Saints because of the sweep. For the Saints, you're looking at the Panthers and saying, look, we can sweep them. We can find ourselves in a great position to win this division. A loss here puts us in a position where those games against the Falcons become paramount, because not only do we not want to be swept by the Falcons and try to hold on to this division, but now we've put ourselves in a little bit of a hole because the division record is starting to look a little lopsided if we don't take care of business versus Carolina. So it's a big one. Knowing that you still got a ton of divisional games left, got to find a way to take care of this one if you're the Saints. So this is a big one at home for both teams. Big one for the Saints, looking to sweep the Panthers. Big one for the Panthers, looking to avoid the sweep by the Saints and take sole possession of first place and keep the Falcons at bay. So I knew this was going to be intriguing football, to say the least. Saints coming off of their first loss in quite some time. They were riding a 9-game winning streak, or 8-game, winning streak coming into last week's contest before falling to the Rams on the road. So they were looking to get back on track against the Panthers. Panthers came off in an ugly win after coming off the bye week versus the Jets, but they got the win nonetheless. And so they were looking to ride that momentum into another win in hopes of getting to 9-3 with a huge matchup at home versus Minnesota in the following week. So they were looking to get this one and build a little bit of momentum going into a huge showdown at home versus a couple of NFC South teams coming up in Minnesota next week and Green Bay the following week. So this would have been a nice springboard into those two home games, but they weren't able to get it done. And I would be lying to you if I told you I didn't see this one coming. The Saints, I've already said, were the better of the two teams. That was apparent the first time these two teams met, but they were in a different headspace when the first time these two teams met. The Panthers were struggling in just about every facet of the game. Maybe defensively they were pretty solid early on in the season, but still searching for an offensive identity at the time that these two teams met. And Panthers were really struggling on the offensive side of football. Saints went in, roughhoused them, came out with a decisive victory. And remember, that's at a time when the Saints were struggling themselves. If I'm not mistaken, that came in week 3 of the season, and the Panthers were 2-0. At the time, Saints were 0-2. So I don't think anyone expected what the Saints were able to accomplish the first time these two teams met. But it was the start of that 9-game winning streak that the Saints were on, 8-game winning streak that the Saints were on. And it's ironic that after losing, they're looking to start a new streak to wrap up the season. And who's the team that gives them an opportunity to start another streak? The team that helped them start the streak the first time in the Carolina Panthers. So offensively, the Saints are light years ahead of the Panthers. Their rookie running back, Alvin Kamara, is what they wanted their rookie running back, Christian McCaffrey, to be. Their run game in New Orleans is what the Panthers strive and attain for their run game to be, similar to what it was in 2015 when they were able to go all the way to the Super Bowl. They're nowhere near that run game. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on when we get to the Panthers. But everything the Saints are as a football team, offensively, the Panthers would love to be, but they're not. And that's going to be the biggest downfall of this Panthers football team is they just don't have it offensively. And, again, we'll talk about that when we get to the Panthers. But the Saints in this game did what they did all throughout that 8-game winning streak. They ran it effectively. Alvin Kamara was a beast. He was, again, that in this game. Drew Brees was outstanding. No turnovers. Shredded this Panthers defense. Made all the throws throughout the course of this game. Managed the game well. It was outstanding. Outstanding. Literally, if not for a turnover by Josh Hill, this game is over in the first half because the Panthers had no answer for the Saints offensively. None. At one point, it was 21-7 when Josh Hill fumbled. If he doesn't fumble that football, they're going to score 28. It's going to be 28-7, and the route would have been on. But that fumble was huge because it allowed Carolina to hang in this ball game. But from an offensive standpoint, Saints were outstanding in this game. From a defensive standpoint, they left a lot to be desired. I thought the run defense was good. I thought the pass defense was okay. But the pass rush was non-existent in this game. There were times where Cam Newton had 800 minutes to throw the football. It's ridiculous. I mean, he could have built 2 houses and started a third in certain instances because there was a lack of a pass rush in this game. But I thought the re-entry of Ken Crawley back into the lineup coming off of the injury was huge. He made a couple of massive plays in this game. You can't wait till you can get back Marshawn Lattimore, but in his absence, I thought Williams was solid on the opposite side. Special teams was huge in this game. Despite the one miss from Will Lutz in this game, 2 massive plays on special teams, along with you creating some opportunities offensively. Alvin Kamara is ridiculous. That 4th and 1 touchdown where he takes the contact from Shaq Thompson, who, if he just wraps up, probably keeps him out of the end zone. But as me and my dad were talking about, a lot of guys just failing to wrap up these days. Everybody's looking for the big kill shot. Shaq Thompson, no different than any other young linebacker in this league, looking for the big kill shot. Nobody wraps up anymore. It's a lost art. And Kamara bounces off of that and gets into the end zone. This is a beautiful run. And he had to have it. It was 4th down. They pushed all the chips to the middle of the table. They rolled the dice, kissed them, blew on them, and hoped it came up nice. And they were able to come away with a touchdown on their opening possession. They set the tone for the game. All right, scared money don't make money. Sean Payton was like, hey, we're going to risk it because we're going to win it. And came up for him. It was huge. And then Kamara had another great touchdown to pretty much seal the game late. He's outstanding. He's phenomenal. He's Rookie of the Year. To me, at one point I thought it could be Lattimore. It's Alvin Kamara, not even close. He's going to wrap that thing up. He's been outstanding. He's the best rookie in the league thus far, hands down to me. And he had another outstanding game. And I remember one time Sean Payton said, the only thing keeping him from being Rookie of the Year is me. Well, that's not the case anymore. This guy's going ballistic. And he's the best rookie in the league, hands down, bar none. And the 2 special teams plays were huge. It just, any momentum the Panthers were trying to build, they lost on special teams in this game. Whether it's Michael Pilardi muffing a perfectly good snap, dropping the football as he's going to kick it, which gave the Saints great field position, which they did not need in a 14-7 game. You're asking for trouble. Trouble they got. And then you're trying to get back into the game. You're going to get great field position. I think at that point in the game, you're down 28-14, maybe. In any event, you're right there, still in this ball game, down 2 scores, with a chance to get some great field position. You're at midfield. If he just falls down where he's getting tackled, you're at or past midfield into Saints territory. And as he was one of the heroes last week, Kalen Clay was GOAT this week. and not in greatest of all time, but just as a scapegoat, as he fumbled the football. Great play to hit him from behind and knock the football loose, recovered by the Saints. And again, in a game in which they didn't need your help, the Panthers gave the Saints plenty of help on special teams, and I was part of their undoing in this football game as the Saints get the win 31-21, sweep the Panthers this season, and are now 9-3 atop this tough NFC South division, the best division in all of the National Football League. Excellent win by the Saints. They look like a really formidable team, but I will say this. It would not shock me if the Falcons swept them and won that division. But if you're asking me who's the best team in this division, I'd tell you it's the New Orleans Saints. I tell you it's the Saints. And them with home playoff games could be scary for the rest of the teams in the NFC. So that's something to keep an eye on. Where do they end up? Because seeding is going to be huge because they're not the same team on the road as they are at home. We saw that last week. And you can talk to me about the guys that you were missing in the lineup. I don't care. It's a different team on the road versus at home. They're one of the few teams in this league that they have a home field advantage when they play at home in the Superdome. So it's a different animal at home versus on the road. So if the Saints can find a way to get their hands on one of those top 2 seeds, that would greatly benefit them in trying to get to the Super Bowl this season. Let's get to the Panthers quickly and get out of here. Really disappointed in the offensive weaponry that Cam Newton has around him. It's really a shame, to be honest with you, that he has to put up with such ineptitude around him because, number one, let's start with the running game, the lack thereof. You won't find many outcomes be favorable for you when your quarterback is your leading rusher. I challenge you to take a look at every single game in which a team's quarterback was their leading rusher. Look at the records in those games this season. I can tell you just off of doing what I do every week, more times than not, if your quarterback leads your team in rushing, you probably lost the game. Most likely. If 5 quarterbacks led their team in rushing, I guarantee you that those teams went 1-4 or 0-5 in that week of football. It's not often. You got the rare occasion where Cam goes off for 80 yards rushing like he did, I think, against the Dolphins. I think he had like 80-some-odd yards rushing against the Dolphins. They put up damn near 50, and he was the leading rusher in that game, and they won. There's the rare occasion that happens, or Marcus Mariota busts off a 45-yard run in the course of his game and then ends up with 87 yards rushing, and he leads his team in rushing, and they win the game. That can happen, but it's rare. It's rare that your quarterback has 6 carries for 51 yards like Cam Newton had in this game, and you win the game. Because that's not enough yards rushing. It's one thing when your quarterback has an inordinate amount of rushing yards. Like I threw that ambiguous number out, 87 yards. That's a high number for a quarterback. That's a lot of yards rushing. That's an impactful number. 51, that's a solid number, but it's not enough to change the game. It's not enough to move the needle. When your quarterback has 34 yards rushing and he's your leading rusher, you have a problem. And the Panthers simply don't run it good enough these days. And what that, in effect, does is it puts more pressure on Cam Newton in the passing game to move the football and score points for this offense. And they can't afford the turnovers they had in this game. They can't afford the lack of the run game. They can't afford Cam Newton having to put this team on his back with the lack of weapons. I saw Brinson Burnson in the game, in meaningful snaps, getting meaningful targets on third downs. That's not good. Okay? This reminds me a lot, and I said this earlier on an earlier stream, this reminds me a lot of Donovan McNabb in Philadelphia when he was throwing to the likes of Freddie Mitchell and Todd Pinkston and James Thrash and all those guys in Philadelphia when they used to just say, hey, we gave you Westbrook, figure it out. Make it happen. Because you're a great quarterback. Make it happen. Feels like they're doing the same thing to Cam in Carolina. Now, granted, he's missing his top target at the tight end position in Olsen. That's a big loss. But Olsen hasn't been around all season long. He played in literally 2 games this season. 3 games this season. Got injured in 2 of those 3 games. Didn't finish but 1 game this year. You trade away, and I know Panthers fans have already come to grips with that and felt like that was the move. Okay, fine. I'm a firm believer in don't get rid of one thing unless you have a direct answer or a replacement for it. You got rid of KB, and there was no direct replacement for the ripple effect. So if you want to say, well, Funchess has picked up the slack and he's in the KB role, I'm cool with that. Who's picked up the Funchess slack? Now that he's moved to number 1, who's picked up the number 2 slack? Who's doing that? You don't have an answer because there's not a guy on this roster who's going to do it. Kalen Clay? Damaris Bird? Who's going to do that? Who's going to pick up that number 2 slack? Still waiting on that Tampa Bay receiver to come through for you, huh? How's that working out for you? Right now, on offense, it's Cam Newton, it's Christian McCaffrey, and it's Devin Funchess. After those 3 guys, what do you really got? It's a damn shame. It's a travesty is what it is that Cam Newton has to put up with this nonsense. There's no run game. He has a lack of weaponry. Guys can't win and separate. The touchdown that Funchess caught, that was simply, hey, you're 6'4", the corner's 5'10". I'm throwing it up high, make a play for me. That's what it's essentially become in Carolina. That's what they're resorting to now. Hey, we got to win with size because we don't have much else. It's not going to get it done. So I'm disappointed in what they've put around Cam, but defensively, this was a horrible game for the Panthers. Not enough pressure on Breeze, even though they got to him a couple of times. But when he had time, he shredded him. The secondary is a mess. And I'll tell you, I'll take it a step further. You can run on the Carolina Panthers. I remember when running wasn't an option against the Panthers. They were so big inside, and it just wasn't happening. Those linebackers, they scraped, and they got in the backfield. They made tackle. You can run on the Carolina Panthers. They got ran on in this game. I've seen them run on in the past. Eagles ran on them. I've seen the Dolphins run. Drake had a 65-yard touchdown run on them. You can run on these boys. And so, what is the identity of this defense again? I forgot. What are you supposed to do really well? Because your secondary isn't good. Kurt Coleman. Saw him missing tackles all over the goddamn place today and getting beat for touchdowns, like always. But he's not the only guy in the secondary getting their ass whooped. Great play by the old man in that secondary, Mike Adams, with a forced fumble of Josh Hill that kept you in the ball game. But aside from that, your secondary was minced meat in this game. They saw food. Drew Brees saw food and ate all day long. Your front seven, and you're not stopping the run. So what are you good at again on defense? I forgot, because everybody keeps telling me how good this Panthers defense is, and I'm looking around and I'm saying, did you not see the Jets put up 30 last week? Or should have put up 30 if they didn't? Because I saw 200-yard receivers in that game and a run game that was adequate enough to get them by. I don't know if you watched that game, but I did. I saw some big runs in this game. I saw Ingram with a 72-yard run. Kamara had some good runs. They rushed for over 100 yards. Did you see that too? Because I did. What's good about this? Somebody remind me. What's good about this defense again? And special teams, for as good as it was last week, boy, did they let you down this week. And that's the problem I have with the Panthers is I just don't know what Panthers team I'm getting from week to week. And you're asking Cam to do too much. You're asking Cam to be the savior. It's so not fair. And I know he gets paid a ton of money, so it's cool to put it on his shoulders, but damn, can the man get some help? That's funky what you're doing to that man out there. In any event, the Saints, they really dominated this game. The score really doesn't do it justice. If not for the Josh Hill fumble, they probably put 40 on the board today. This was a dominant performance, to be honest with you. And 31-21 really doesn't do it justice. But in any event, they get the win, 31-21. They move to 9-3, take sole possession of first place in the NFC South. Panthers drop to 8-4. And much like I said with the Falcons, everything you want is still in front of you. You can't win a division. You can, but you're not going to. For all intents and purposes. I don't think you're going to win. Because I think Atlanta's going to beat you the second time around in Atlanta to split that season series with you. You've already been swept by the Saints. I just don't see you doing enough. And you've got some toughies at the crib, man. NFC North coming to the crib the next 2 weeks. That's going to be tough. We're going to see what you do, though. As you drop this one 31-21 to the Saints, who are a damn good football team. Let's get to some comments, if there are any out there. See what we got. All right. Reese says, Lou, do you think Kamara would be this good? Maybe it was just a good fit. He seems downright unstoppable. Yeah, I did. I wanted my Redskins to draft him so bad. I mean, you watch my draft coverage. You know how much I was drooling over Alvin Kamara and the prospects of him coming into this league. The dude, I told you, I thought he was the best back in the draft. After the one guy in Leonard Fournette that was a shoe-in, surefire, can't-miss prospect at the running back position, which I thought that Fournette was, to me, Kamara was the next best running back in this draft. Better than Cook, better than McCaffrey, better than all of them. I had a first-round grade on Alvin Kamara. I thought if he didn't go in the first round, which I thought he was a first-round type of running back, I said he's going to go in the second round. There's no way he gets out of the second round, and the man didn't get picked to the third round. And I know a lot of teams around the league that should be kicking themselves because there was no way he was supposed to make it to the third round to this team. But I tell you this much, I don't know if he's this effective with any other team. He landed in the best spot possible for his skill set. The minute he landed in New Orleans, go back and watch my draft day video. The minute he landed in New Orleans, I said that he couldn't have landed in a better spot. Like, he couldn't have landed with a better coach, in a better situation, with a better team, in an offensive fit that's going to maximize his skill set. I don't know if he would have been this good anywhere else. Reese says, why did the Saints sign Adrian Peterson in the offseason anyway? It was completely unnecessary. Well, remember, the draft comes after free agency, unlike in other sports where the draft comes before free agency. In the NFL, the draft comes after free agency. So they signed Adrian Peterson and I want to say it was before the draft they signed him because his signing came later on in free agency. But I don't know if they knew what they were going to get out of Ingram. I don't know if they knew what they were going to get out of Kamara. And so they just had Adrian Peterson as insurance. But I think they didn't have Kamara yet because the draft hadn't come yet. I think they had signed him pre-draft, but I could be wrong about that. Reese says, Todd Stinkston. Yeah, man, that's what I used to call Todd Pinkston. Todd Stinkston. But anyway, looks like that's all the comments we have, man. Big win for the New Orleans Saints as they complete the season sweep over the Carolina Panthers, 31-21, moved to 9-3 on the season. Panthers dropped to 8-4. Big matchup, quick turnaround for the Saints on Thursday Night Football on the road at Atlanta for the first of two with these two teams. And honestly, the division could be in the balance because if the Falcons are able to go on a run here at the end of the season and win all 4 games, they would win the NFC South division. So if you're the Saints, you want to throw a wrench in that plan right off the bat, go on Thursday night on the road and beat the Falcons in their building, similar to what Minnesota just did, and you can walk away with this division most likely with a win there. That's going to be a huge game. But even if you don't win that one, you still got them at home in the Superdome a couple weeks after. So in any event, Saints have a great shot to win this division inside track. They've got the best odds of winning this division as it currently stands, sitting at 9-3. We'll see if they're able to take advantage of some opportunities on Thursday Night Football on that quick turnaround and get a win on the road versus the Atlanta Falcons. For the Panthers, if you ask me, and I told you I've been saying this over and over again, I don't know if I necessarily believe it, but I've been saying it. And I've said it enough to the point now where I firmly believe it, even if I didn't believe it when I first said it. I don't think 3 teams from this division is getting in. And if you told me that one team had to drop out of the mix between the Panthers, the Falcons, and the Saints, I'd tell you it was the Panthers. That's what I'd say to you. I don't know if the Panthers are going to bow out. This was not impressive. This scares me. They do this next week, they're going to lose again to Minnesota. They do it the week after, and Aaron Rodgers decides, oh, well, we've won 2 in a row. I should come back. You could lose to Aaron Rodgers at home the very next week after that. So this season could go upside down for the Panthers very quickly if they don't fix some things on offense. One thing's for certain, they're in a great position to make the postseason. But a nice little slip up at the end of this season could cost them in a very tough NFC and competitive NFC. No time for the games. This is not the time to start making some mistakes, turning the football over, and having defensive breakdowns like you had in this game. Wide open receivers, missed tackles, things of that nature. This is not the time for it. So we'll see if the Panthers can bounce back. But this was not some of their best football. But still 4 more weeks for them to prove that they belong. And we'll see if they're able to do that moving forward. But I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. I thank you for joining me. I've got more breakdowns to come. Patriots, Bills coming at you next, followed by Raiders, Giants. So don't you go anywhere. More lockdown coverage as Late Night Louie continues. See you then.